Welcome. If you don't know me, I'm Emily Ramsey. I'm the Executive Director of Digi60. Welcome to our live panel tonight called Halfway There. We're going to be speaking with past winners and participants of the Digi60 Filmmakers Festival to discuss the challenges, best advice in an Ask Me Anything style conversation. But before I get started, Digi60 would like to acknowledge that even though we are meeting virtually this evening, our festival takes place on the unceded, unsurrendered land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples, stewards of this land since time immemorial. We would like to invite our audience to take the time to do some research and learn more about the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, their concerns and their claims, and we call upon all levels of government to walk a true path toward reconciliation by implementing all 94 calls to action listed by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a small step toward acknowledging and addressing the historic abuse and injustices of the residential school systems. Throughout the evening, I'm going to be keeping my eye on time for everyone, and I'll be helping to facilitate any questions that come in through the chat. Once again, I ask if you're not a panelist to please turn off your video and to make sure that your mic is muted for now, just to maximize the bandwidth and to make sure that everything is coming through loud and clear and that there's no feedback. We would also like to let you know that at the end, if we don't run out of time, there's definitely going to be time, I think, for us to ask a few questions. And at that moment, we can get you to turn on your microphone and your video whenever that comes up. But until then, please feel free to leave your questions at the chat at the bottom of your screen. And without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce Kevin Burton, president of Digi60, who is going to be facilitating the panel tonight. Kevin.
Thanks, Emily. It's great to see people coming out halfway through. I'm sure most of you are just here because you finished and you just want to review what you've done so far. Just make sure that you've got everything done properly. But you're halfway through, and probably some of you are maybe close to finish. Some of you probably are still in the script process, I'm sure. So, but there's still lots of time. And it's great that you're here to hopefully get some helpful tips and some ideas from people who've gone through the process before. And we've got an amazing number of entries this year, like the most ever. And just, I say it all the time, but Emily and the team that she's put together, just amazing group of people. And they've really gone out, got the message out about Digi60 and this year's festival. It's going to be amazing. The weekend of the screenings and the workshops and stuff. Like I'm so excited for you all to be able to show up and be part of it. It's really amazing what Emily's put together and the team. So anyways, it's great. So yeah, I'm excited to get our virtual panel started by introducing our 4 panelists. That's a great idea. Let's see. So Arjan. Wave. Yeah. So his film in 2019 was Night Drive, which won the awards for Best Director and Best Technical. His film was also selected for the Austin Micro Short Film Festival, the Alt-FF Alternative Film Festival, and won for Best Microfilm in the 2020 Independent Shorts Awards. Oh, that's awesome. Good stuff. Congratulations. Who's up now? Hingman is way the 2020 entry into the Digi Filmmakers Festival was Curbside Pickup. Oh, I loved Curbside Pickup. It was great. Which won awards for Best Director and Best Film. Her film went on to be screened at multiple film festivals, including Inside Out LGBTQ Festival, and was a finalist at the 2021 CBC Short Film Face Off. Right, and you can actually watch the film. I believe CBC still has that up in that episode on demand, so you can watch the film there. That's great. And I think Arjan, your film is also up available to watch, right? Yeah, great. Patrick, where's Patrick? Oh, there. Hey, Patrick. Patrick's 2021 entry, Fitful Mercies, won for Best Film and Best Acting. Good, also a really good film. It was great. Yeah. Patrick was recently selected to participate in Ottawa's Moonrise Productions script-to-screen incubator, directing his next project, Heartless. That sounds cool. Awesome. Good stuff. And Angie, where's Angie? Oh, there's, hey, Angie, how's it going? let's see, Angie's film Megan's Day won for Best Director at the 2021 festival. Oh yeah, it was, it's a good film. That was good too. That's right. These were all good films. Well, I guess that's why you're here. Her film went on to the official selection for MIFF, the Montreal International Film Festival, the Mom Film Fest, the Dances with Films Film Festival, the Sioux Film Festival, and the Cinema Femme Short Film. It's been around. Nice. Excellent. That's so cool. Great stuff. All right. So everyone, like, they were where you were at the beginning of the festival, starting to make short films. So I'm really hoping that what we're going to talk about tonight is going to help you as you move forward, no matter what stage you are right now. So we have some questions that we're going to run through with each of the panelists. So we'll start with the first question. Thinking back on your first submission, what were the biggest lessons you learned? Biggest lessons you learned. Who wants to go first? Arjan, go ahead.
For me, the biggest lesson that I learned was, I kind of wanted to do everything myself on that one. We had a really, really small crew, I was directing. That was my main job. So I found a lot of time I was running around doing stuff that wasn't directing. And I wouldn't say that my first one was a big success. Actually, I kind of learned by stumbling a little bit. But I think the biggest thing was, get everybody doing their role so you can do your role the best. So you're not, for like Night Drive, I directed and that was it. I had an assistant director, even just to manage the flow of people and crew arriving. And even stuff like, food, like catering, feeding the actors. I kind of like had everyone doing a very specific role, which allowed me to kind of just get behind the camera and, focus on directing. So that was what I would say I learned the most.
Awesome. How about Angie? You're still muted, Angie. Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought the space bar worked, but it doesn't. It was pretty much the same thing as what Arjan just said. I wish, and I didn't, I wish that I had assigned somebody to be a first AD. I found myself doing it all. And that was the hardest part, was to, coordinate everything and then run back over and put the director hat on, So that's something that I swore the next short film I made, I would have a first AD. But I don't, and I'm making another one right now. So I'm just trying to take it easy on myself, and I'm trying to have everything organized, and I'm just telling people well ahead in advance what I'm expecting of them, and so far it's been okay. But I've only shot one scene, so.
But it must be great to get an appreciation of all the roles. When you do all the roles, that's when you really appreciate what other people do.
So much. And, I say it all the time. I've been working in film for about 20 years, but as makeup and then as a script supervisor. And whenever you switch departments, it's not only that you have an appreciation for what that department does, but you see from a whole different perspective of what all of the other departments do. So like to see what hair and makeup do from a script supervisor and, everybody who's at the monitor, from that perspective, it's different. So I've always really highly valued first ADs, especially ones that are really on top of things. And I feel, I was like, oh, I don't need one. I'm just doing a short little movie with my friends, but I do really wish that I had one last year. And I wish that I had somebody available who understood how a set works to do it for me this year. But nobody's really available. It's kind of a busy time right now. So
yeah, that's probably part of the problem, is we have so many filmmakers this year that no one has the time to help anyone else. The crews are spread so thin. So we apologize for that. We apologize for our success.
It's a good problem. It's good.
Exactly. All right, Hingman.
Yeah, my first film for Digi60 wasn't curbside pickup. It was in 2019. We had a super small crew and none of us had done a film before like this. And so for me, the biggest lesson in that project was communication is key. If if I don't know something, I have to speak up. I can't just assume other people know what I'm talking about, because that just led to it's not a lot of time, 60 days. So not communicating or assuming that other people kind of just understand you inherently led to misunderstandings down the line. So just making sure to keep communications open. There's no stupid question, and keeping the space open, and also to go with the flow. That was a huge lesson, because I like to plan a lot in advance. I'm the kind of person who like makes an itinerary for my trips like down to the hour. But on a film set, anything like, there could be construction that you didn't know about, and there would be noise. Yeah, letting go of that, I think was a huge lesson for me as well.
Excellent. All right, and Patrick, you're a child. It's easy for the young people, right?
In its own way, I'm sure. It's never been easy for me, but I'm sure it is for others. Like Hingman, my first Digi film, it was actually the first short I ever did, was in 2019, called Moonbeam. And I think the biggest takeaway for me coming out of that was fix it in pre as opposed to fix it in post. I kind of rushed into production on that, thinking I want to give myself as much time through November to edit this thing, when I probably would have been able to edit it in a much shorter amount of time had I put more forethought into what I was getting and how I was going to get it. So now I'm, almost the exact opposite, where I'm like, no, I'm gonna spend more time in pre than I am in post, really plan everything down to the last detail. If things change on the day, they change on the day, but you go in with a plan, and you're gonna have a much easier time to sit down, mirror, resolve, or whatever it is. The other thing that I learned coming out of that shoot is that there are more departments than camera, and a lot of the time they are neglected. Remember that sound is like 50% at least of a movie. I was not thinking of sound at all when I did that film, and it was my biggest headache when I went into post. Probably that really helped back.
Yes, I would say that's very common among first filmmakers, is not realizing the importance of audio. Yeah, so excellent point. All right, we have another question. What is our next question here? What were some key tools or resources that helped get you to the finish line? Oh, that's a good question. All right, so we'll start with Angie this time.
Hi. So things that helped were I had somebody lined up to edit from the beginning, from the minute I decided to do it. Somebody who's very competent and who I trusted. So that was definitely helpful. And then also just having the support group, really, just knowing that I'm not alone. I wasn't the only one doing it. And, I could reach out and get some help if I needed to. Emily is really amazing. She's one of the nicest people I've ever, I have really dumb questions. When people say there's no such thing as a stupid question, like you can ask her. I asked her stupid questions because I just wasn't sure about things. And in the past, I think I would be embarrassed or shy to speak up and ask. And I was, but I did it anyway, because I wanted to get this thing done. So she was very helpful. So definitely, think about everything you need besides what you're filming. Think about who's going to put it together for you. And then, like if you need any help, just reach out for it. Really, that helped.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't be too proud to ask, because we all were at a point where we didn't know the answers.
Yeah.
And someone had to tell us. So, and everybody in this group is more than willing to offer and help, guaranteed. Good point. All right, Hingman.
I agree with everything that Angie said. And I'm gonna tack on to Patrick's comment about sound. One thing that not a lot of people know about is freesound.org. It's a community of people who go out to record like field recordings, any kind of sound effect, and upload it for free. You can use it for free. So I needed a lot of additional sound effects or just like, what does a room sound like? You know, even if there's nobody in it, there's a sound, and people record that stuff. You can download any sound for free from freesound.org, and it really helped me fill in those spaces in the film that I didn't have good sound for, and that helped me get to the finish line.
Excellent. And actually, and where did you do your voiceover?
Me? For
Yeah.
a curbside pickup?
Yeah.
It was done at someone's home studio.
Brilliant, eh? Yeah, and
Mhm.
and the quality of it was just excellent. Just taking that little extra step to get it done in a place where it's going to sound good made a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, Charles is a professional sound recordist, and so he had all the equipment that was needed and knew how to get it done right. So really glad that I was able to get people who did a specific job.
Brilliant. All right, Patrick.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind actually repeating the question when you were, my fat thumbs were trying to mute myself there. And,
All right, what were some key tools or resources that helped you to get to the finish line?
yeah, so with Fitful Mercies, I think a big part of that was establishing relationships with people who, in the local scene were willing to collaborate and lend you their talent. So like Jesse Colangio is a constant collaborator of mine at DOP on most everything I do. And, he brought a lot of expertise, a lot of gear, stuff like that. And, to be able to have somebody who you can see as a creative equal. It's not like you're the boss on set by virtue of being, director. You're guiding the vision, the job, but everybody's coming out, they're bringing their own, lens, literally and figuratively. And being able to collaborate that way was super helpful. Having that support, I that's really what set it apart from my earlier films, where I kind of saw it as I'm a strict author. I got to do it all myself.
Yeah, having a group that you can put the trust in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Arwen.
So for me, I would say, like as Patrick was talking about all the spending time in pre-production, I think there's so many templates available that that can be used, like from like Studio Binder, like shot lists, storyboarding. Like the more of the stuff, some stuff I know from my first one, I really didn't want to fill out so many documents. And like I got it in my head. I'm like, I'll be able to figure it out on set. But I realized the more of these that I did, the smoother my project went. Even for Night Drive, I made like this lookbook that was like, okay, this is the vibe of the movie. And then, I had all these like just like pictures that inspired me and stuff, just so everybody on set was kind of on the same page. And even though it kind of seems silly when you're doing it, in the end, I think it really helped kind of get the vibe and the message and all that stuff across to everybody there.
Nice. Did I just call you Arwen? I think
You did. Yeah, it's Arjan, but
my Lord of the Rings nerddom. Yeah, sorry. All right. All right. Yeah, great. Yeah, a lookbook. Yeah, we've actually had people working with us at Digi in the last little while who've been coming up with sort of those lookbook things. I never really worked with them before, but yeah, it makes a huge difference in how the feel, the colors maybe that you're going for. Like, yeah, it's a really, really cool tool. All right, next question. What were the biggest takeaways from submitting your first film to Digi60, and how has that experience helped you in future projects? So your biggest takeaway after your first film. All right, and we'll start with Hingman this time.
My first film for Digi60 was submitted in 2019, and I learned so much from it that the process of making it was my takeaway. Learning, everything that I needed to learn, I guess. But then it received the Spirit of the Fest award, and I was like blown away. I was like, what? How did this happen? And that was such a boost to kind of my interest and desire to keep doing it. And it was like, yes, okay, there's something here, I can keep doing it. And like I feel like watching it with an audience too, having that opportunity just really made me feel like yeah, people resonate with this content. So maybe I should keep doing it.
Yeah, the audience is so cool. Like to think you started with a blank page and got to the point where people were laughing or crying or being emotionally moved by something you did. Like, wow, it's the thing about Digi60, I find. So yeah, excellent. Arjan.
So for me, I would say the biggest takeaway is to use the 60-day limit. Let it like fuel your creativity, because 60 days is so little time. And even for Night Drive, I had this very grand kind of idea. And like 2 weeks before, I'm like, we haven't shot anything and we're missing crew. And I really didn't think I was gonna get it submitted. But what I did was I kind of used those limits that I had and focused on what I did have. And I'm so glad I submitted it, because I was very close to being like, it's not perfect. And I had to change things that I didn't want to change. But in the end, the 60 days, having that firm deadline and having to submit something by that time kind of made me, use those limits to kind of fuel the creativity. And I would say, for those filmmakers that are like right there, the finish line, they don't think they're going to make it. Like, see what you can do to get it submitted and like, make a coherent kind of film. It doesn't even have to be coherent, really. It's just more about getting it done, I would say. And it really helps for the next project too, because then you will use your time wisely.
Yeah. And I think it's such a supportive group. Like when you're at the screenings and you're meeting up after the screenings and through the weekend and stuff, everyone is so supportive. They know what you've had to go through just to get something done. So yeah, don't worry that you're going to be judged, for sure. Yeah, good point. Patrick.
All right. Yeah. No. I guess for me, the big takeaway of it all was, it's important to be true to your vision, as a director. But what I really learned with my first submission was that don't feel that by adhering to a vision you can't compromise on. I remember with Moonbeam in particular, this one shot I had in my head when I wrote it. And, I came into all of this. I was a writer for, a recreational writer, I'd say, before I was ever a filmmaker. And then I got it in my head, like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna go out, make this stuff move, put it on the screen. But there was this shot I had in my head of a character who was, in this headspace and dealing with binge eating disorder. And I saw this garbage piling up behind him as he got smaller and smaller. And we filmed it, and it looked awful in the edit, and there was no way we could put this in the film, and I kept trying to make it work. And then I realized, like, what I want to convey here does not need to be conveyed by this shot. We can, use our other footage to show him as being alone in this moment, pull back to a why and whatnot. And I think a lot of people get hung up once they make that jump where they're like, okay, I'm going to plan. They get married to that, and there's no room for deviating from that. So I'd say, like, know your story, and then service that idea. You don't need to service every single idea right down to. You got to be open to other people's ideas. If something's not working, it's not working.
Yeah, you hear of directors saying, like, don't fall in love with your shots. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you have to stand back and be impartial about whether that shot really needs to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And I, feel that as director, you got to be your own harshest critic. You need to be able to objectively take that step back. It's on you. And if it's a comedy and people aren't laughing, well, maybe we got to do something else, right? So.
Right. All right. And Angie.
So I have two, and they're quick. The first one is, I think what Arjan said too. I definitely work better under a deadline. So that was a takeaway that, I can't just keep, I'm a, lifelong procrastinator. So that really helped me, like having this deadline. And then also within the 60 days, you need to kind of set deadlines for yourself, when you want to have everything shot by, when you want to have everything edited by, because even once you're done editing, then there's, you need to submit everything in the checklist, right? So I was so caught up in making sure that I had the film done that I forgot about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So just keeping all of that in mind. And then the other thing is also, like, I guess, being able to sell myself a little bit. And not even just yourself, but like the film that you made. So when I did Megan's Day, it was really just for Digi60. And we were at the after party, and Hingman came up to me and she was like, "Are you going to submit this to other festivals, right?" And I was like, "What? I can do that?" And she told me about Film Freeway. And then, I started submitting to festivals. I submitted to a whole bunch thinking I wouldn't get into any because I have imposter syndrome. And I got into most of them.
Yeah.
So yes. So thank you so much, Hingman. But also I hold true and loyal to Digi60. And whenever I'd be in these other film festivals, I'd say, it was this supportive community and, having this tight schedule, but with support, like it seems like these opposites, you only have 60 days to deliver a 7-minute or less, but really, but you have all of the support. So you have all these resources, and it's perfect. It's perfect for doing your first short film. If this is your first one, especially, that's, we're very lucky. And thank you, Kevin and Emily and Derek and everybody, because to be able to follow your dream and to make something that means something to you with this much support, and there's no bitterness, there's no competition, like everybody's really helping each other out. So I don't know if I answered the question.
Absolutely not, but that's no, exactly. Yeah. And we were debating, we were going to switch it to Digi 59, but we realized 60 is perfect. You're right. So it is amazing how people just get in under that deadline. But yeah, it's so worth it. It's so worth it to have that deadline and make sure that you're used to it. And I mean, personally, like, I know I've worked on shows where you're editing and you get edit creep, where it's, oh, I can always make it a little better, and I can always make it a little better. And then when it's done is when the deadline. That's when it's done. Like you can't keep working on it anymore. So and it's reached that point. So yeah, great. All right. So we have some questions that were submitted by some of the filmmakers. So if you're all good with that, we'll start going through them. What was the most challenging thing you had to overcome while making your films? All right, we'll start with Patrick.
Yeah, I think, beyond stuff we've already spoken of, like scheduling work, stuff like that. Something that, especially in my early films, was difficult for me was I would be implicating people come and help me who had been in this for a lot longer than me. And I'm the kind of person where I like to make sure everyone has their input, and especially early on, I found I was very easily swayed if someone was saying, like, no, this isn't working, let's do it this way. I'd be, okay, sure, okay. And then I'd sit down in the edit and I'd be like, no, it's really not working the way I imagined. And of course it's not, because I really didn't stick to my guns. When I showed up, I wasn't able to, take someone's input, make it fit within the vision, explain, like, yes, this is going to work because, or no, this is not going to work because. So I think building that self-confidence and being able to, communicate, look, I'm the arbiter of ideas. I don't need to be the creator of them all, but I got to be able to have that say and really guide the vision of where this is going to go. That was probably the big challenge for me. It's something that I'm always trying to get better at.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Good point. Yeah, and like Angie had talked about having imposter syndrome.
Yeah, the same thing. I think a lot of creatives have that. So.
Excellent. Arjan.
Mine's a bit more specific. When I did my second Digi60 film, which is Black Butterfly, there was like this club scene. And what I learned is don't do a club scene on Monday morning, because like none of your extras will show up. So we had like not enough people to fill a club. So I had to get pretty creative and basically grabbed everybody that was in the vicinity and saw what we had left in wardrobe and just like kind of made it work. that would be, I think every project has its own like challenges for sure, like specific challenges based on what it is. Usually you can assume that something on your shoot day will go wrong. So, you know, you're gonna have to get your thinking cap on. So that will be my answer.
Yeah, and locations, like it's massive. There's times when they're available, but maybe not the best time for you. But yeah, and how do you work the balance between those? Yeah. Awesome. Hingman.
I'm just gonna say imposter syndrome.
Short and simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure all of us identify with it at some level for sure too. Yeah. But no longer, right?
It's always a question in my head, but I mean that it's what keeps me grounded in trying to remember that I'm doing this because I want to see this content out there.
Yeah. And I think it's all like Patrick said, just developing that level of confidence where you know that it's your vision, you're willing to take in ideas, but it's your sort of, you're driving down that highway, making sure you stay between the lines, basically.
Yeah. It's like just remembering what I'm doing this for and why.
All right. And Angie.
Mine is also quite specific. I thought I was being very clever and organized everything to be shot in one day and outside so that I wouldn't need to spend a lot of money on lights.
Yeah.
And then it rained all day. And it didn't rain at all that week. It just rained on that one day and it was cold and wet, but we we just got out tarps and umbrellas, and I gave umbrellas to the characters. I was like, here, we're going to have umbrellas now. And my DOP, Jessie Turner, she was like, it actually it looks great with the rain. And it was true. But yeah, just, one of those adapting things.
It added to the frustration of your character for sure. Like it actually, it's somebody new.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Oh yeah, this is a good question. So did you come into the festival with an idea that you adapted to the theme, or did you wait until you heard what the catch was and then come up with an idea? And how did that work for you? All right. And we'll start with Angie this time.
Yeah, I wrote it first. And it was, but you know what? I was thinking of, okay, well, if it's really different, I've got a couple of stories, in my back pocket that I'd like to do. But it just turned out that this year's theme, Escape, is perfect. Oh, but last year, because that's probably what you were asking me about.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. Last year, it was kind of a story that I'd been thinking about doing, and I'd been talking to my sister about it. And then when it was revealed that our theme last year was power, it was perfect. And it wasn't an obvious in your face power, but it was, I think it suited it very well. So.
Right. That's it. All right, Patrick.
Yeah, so I had the idea before, in very vague terms. I had this idea where I wanted to, tell a story, and without the characters openly talking about it. It was it was a short story, I think, by Ernest Hemingway, Hills Like White Elephants, where he was doing something similar, and I read it recently, and I was like, I want to do something vaguely like that. And then a friend of mine who was an actress wanted something demo reel. She's like, could write something for me. So I had all this stuff knocking around in my head. And when I heard the theme of power, it just sort of came to me, the story touched on euthanasia and abortion, the ruling that came to Texas at the time. Obviously as things develop down south, it's almost become more pertinent now. But really, I remember being at the catch release and thinking, okay, I've got the story here. And I kind of walked home and I was writing it in my head. Basically out within 2 weeks after that.
I muted myself there. Yeah, exactly. And I think generally speaking, our catches are fairly open-ended enough but it'll sort of take an idea that maybe you had and you have to send it in a certain direction using the catch to go in that direction. Maybe. Oh, I do want to remind everyone, if you do have any questions, anyone who's watching, that come into your head, just pop them into the chat there, and we will definitely ask them. So feel free to add any questions to the chat. Hingman?
So I always tell people to have ideas before the catch and release. But actually 2019 and 2021, neither of the films I had planned to make. I was really inspired at the catch release. 2019, it was a collaboration with Ludmila Reyes, who directed the film, and I was a cinematographer. And we knew a writer who had a bunch of stories, just kind of, looking for a way to turn them into something else. And so in that sense, we adapted something. And then in 2021 for Curbside Pickup, it was, I had planned to bring something to the catch and release because I wanted to be prepared, but that didn't pan out. And then I thought, oh, maybe I won't submit a film then. But then I started thinking about the theme, and I was like, possibilities, yes. And it just like naturally came to my head. But because I didn't have an idea formed beforehand, it kind of limited how much, like, there's no dialogue, right, in my film. And like, there's not enough time. I need like a long time to work out dialogue. So not having an idea beforehand forced me to kind of create a film in the context of like, okay, I don't have a lot of time. I don't know like how many people I can get involved, and just come up with idea like right there. So, but yeah, in the past, I've done a few 48-hour challenges. And for those who definitely need to have like a script before starting.
Yeah. Arjan?
Yeah, for me, I like to do like daily writing. So I like keep lots of like chicken scratch, like writing, like just little ideas that are one-liners. So I usually like will go back to those and kind of see if something kind of piques my interest. Usually before the project, I have a vague idea of like the type, like the kind of the look of the film or the vibe that I would like to do. And obviously it does matter on what the theme or the catch is going to be. But I try to have a few ideas like ready beforehand, and sometimes they work, and sometimes I come up with something completely new. So it depends.
Yeah, and I think even at the catch, being around everybody, you hear people start to talk and bounce ideas off one another there. So yeah, there's always going to be a way to find an idea, whether you come in that way or not, for sure. Yeah, and like I say, I think people do come in with an idea, but then that idea gets sort of moved into a direction that follows along with where it needs to go. So that's my personal thought on it. All right. Oh, we do have a question in the chat. Let me make sure that it's appropriate. Oh, that's a very good question. All right. On your shoot days, what slowed you down the most? And what should you avoid to keep your shoot day moving along? So Arjan, we'll start with you.
I think having a shot list, and then also like determining which order to shoot them in, like your important shots, get those before maybe like, something that only serves a stylistic purpose, So I think prioritizing your shots, and also maybe recognizing on set sometimes when something's taking too long, that you've got to kind of wrap it up if you've got other important stuff to do. Try to think about like your whole film, and if this is gone, will the film still work? So like a lot of times if you take that stylistic shot out, it still makes sense because you've shot those important kind of plot driven kind of scenes. So I would say like and also have somebody there beside you who's kind of like check marking everything off and making sure you've got everything, because sometimes the shoot day will end and like we never shot this scene, especially if I'm also managing the shot list. So I think just having a shot list, prioritizing, and making sure you actually shot that shot as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Hingman?
I think mine is kind of similar. But actually, no, now that I think about it, I'm like thinking back to like my memories, like in like accessing the files. I tend to just like forget about stuff that don't go well. So it's kind of a bad thing because I don't learn. But for me, what slowed me down the most for curbside pickup was actually the technical aspect of having like trying to get the gimbal to work. The entire film is handheld, so asking
Really? Wow.
asking a person to hold a gimbal with a really heavy lens like the entire day is a lot to ask. And sometimes like things kind of like go wrong, or you have to reset, and like every time you take a break you have to reset the gimbal and everything like that. So I think that I didn't realize that because I've never really shot for the whole day before. Yeah, that really slowed me down. But then having a shot list made it easier to figure out, okay, what can we move around to make it more efficient? What can we cut down? What can we simplify so that it's not as big of a day for the person filming?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Actually, Angie, you mentioned shooting outdoors versus shooting indoors. Do you find a difference in the time that takes to be shooting outdoors versus indoors?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's so many variables, right? If you're indoors and you need to light it, like if you have very specific ways that you want to light, that can take a while to set up. But then if you're smart about your scheduling, you can shoot, like you can kind of block shoot, you can shoot everything kind of in that set that you can. So, I mean, it's all planning, really. It's a lot of it is in the planning, and then you can plan and plan and plan. And then you show up and, oh, you know what? We actually don't have access to this room today. So then you need to kind of think on the fly and, well, what we have, what can we set up? So, just plan for what you want and be prepared to change that. I don't know if that sounds helpful at all.
Yeah. Would you actually have backup plans, or you're just trusting yourself to say, I'll come up with a backup plan?
Yeah. Not just trusting myself. I mean, I know I'm pretty easygoing. I'm pretty flexible, but definitely having other people there on your crew who are good at problem solving.
Right.
So, and then really, if something that slowed me down the most again was I wish that I had somebody to say, okay, we need to go to the next location now, or we need to move on, because I was really, I was scattered. I thought I could do it, but you're in the middle of everything. And then in this year's, I'm acting in it as well. And it's a little bit much.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who wants to come be first AD for me, let me know.
But the cat keeps you calm.
Oh my God, my cats are, and it's so funny because whenever I'm on Zoom, they're like, oh, she's sitting still. Cause normally I'm go. I work pretty much full time, and I have 3 kids, and I also decide to do a short film whenever I have free time. So the cats are like, oh, she's still. So, and look how cute she is. Boy, that was.
Patrick.
All right, I kind of have 2 answers to this one, but I'll try and keep them succinct. First one is cigarettes and coffee. The same thing that speeds you up in the morning can slow you down in the afternoon, and you need to remember to eat. If you are on the David Lynch diet the entire day, you're going to get cranky. You're going to be not, as with it. So, I need someone to be able to say, Pat, have you gone to craft? Like, go and grab something to eat. Otherwise, I won't do it. And, I can feel myself being tired by the time you get to like hour 7. For number 2, and this one might be more useful. It's something I wish someone told me. But again, a stylistic thing. Somebody else on the panel might say something completely different. I think for me as a director, I like to think in terms of scenes as opposed to shots. And I think a lot of people, when they get into filmmaking, they're really hung up on the shot, where it's like, you've got a scene where a guy's walking into the room and he's going to go over to the kitchen or something like that. They're okay, I know I want to be wide on the door here, so we're going to get you doing this. Then we're going to cut. We're going to set up over here, and we're going to get you going over here. Blah 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 blah. And I find with working with cast, for every time you have to say action and cut, their energy's depleting a bit. It's that much harder for them to get it back up. And in order to truly get into character, you want to be able to, what I always say is maintain the fantasy for as long as possible. So what I'm a big fan of is finding a wide angle, maybe two. I like to shoot two cameras, get both sides of the conversation, further back. And it's like, let's run the entire scene. I can pick up my coverage later, but we'll go all the way through as long as we can. We'll make our choices when we see it play live. But then we're not beholden to anything where it's like, oh, wait, no, when we got the coverage of you at the door, you had your hand in your pocket. We got to do that every way now. It's like, no, let's see it play all the way out. We've got the good coverage of it. And the take we like is the one we're going to go through, and we're going to get the moments. But that's what I'd say. It's actors like it more because they really get in and feel it. And then if they make a decision they like, they ad-lib a line. You're not beholden to like, well, we didn't get it on the other guy's coverage from that one particular angle. Let it play out. Let them live there, and the movie's going to be better. And that's my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, yeah, there's filmmakers who think that way, like getting that master shot where you run the full scene. And you watch old movies like The Godfather or something like that, where there's just scenes where it is just the wide shot the whole time, and everybody's on camera. Like they have to stay in character acting for the entire 2 minutes, and it makes some amazing moments in film for sure. All right. Josh had a question. Oh, and Josh got an answer about keeping it simple, maybe just shooting with an iPhone. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You are in the right film festival. This is what Digi60 is for. If you're even if you shoot a film with edit it on iMovie, shoot it with your phone. Absolutely. That's what Digi60 is for. And we're gonna love seeing you there that night, the first night of the screenings, and you're gonna meet some amazing people who are gonna help you raise the level of your filmmaking for sure. Like, do it. Just do it for sure. All right. Oh, this is a good one too. Yeah. How did you break up your 60 days? So was it like 20 days writing, 20 days shooting, 20 days editing? So that's the question. All right, Angie.
I knew that I wanted to start filming within the first 2 weeks. For me, it was also, I had a movie coming up, so I had to get everything kind of shot. So I spent like the first couple of weeks really just, settling on the script that I wanted and refining that. And then just kind of getting all the pieces into place. And like I said, last year, I did it all in one day. But that's another thing from a past question. I think I do wish that I had given myself 2 days for this. So maybe just make sure that you have enough time, but yeah, that's it.
All right. Yeah. So it sounds like pre-production and post-production take up the most time, and shooting takes the least time, but it depends on the pre-production.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm really, like, you can probably tell by the way I'm answering, I'm not a very organized person. So I need to like try hard and focus. And I like being pushed into doing that. So I don't have like a set plan. I just know it should be done. I should be done shooting. In that case, I gave myself pretty much 2 weeks, although it turned out to be a month. Anyway, whatever. Yeah. I'm sure the other panelists have a lot more structure.
Well, let's find out. Patrick.
Yeah, so I'm now racking my brain thinking how I blocked out everything on the calendar. I do know that last year I went into principal photography the second weekend of November. This year I'm doing that again. Last year I hated myself in post for doing that, and I'm probably going to hate myself this year as well. But I find, again, with that fix it and free mentality, it's not time wasted when you have all that. So I'd say, I probably spent the first 2 weeks getting the script in a place where it was not done. The script's not done until like the day we go into principal. But good enough where I could cast. I'm like, characters are solid. I get who they are now. They're real to me. I'll be able to find something to build on. Casting is, for me, the hardest part. I can bring back the same guys for crew every single time, but unless I'm writing the same character every time, no, casting is different. You gotta find people. That process takes a while. So I'd say the sooner you can post up on like Ottawa Actors Facebook page for people who aren't here. Lots of great non-union talent in the city. Lots of people who are happy to work for the chance at screening. If you don't have a reel or anything to show off, the problems with screenings oftentimes enough for people who want to come out. That's your advantage. And then yeah, no, I probably spent up until November 1st, Halloween, casting, shot listing at that point. So really writing down how I want, how I want it to look, collaborating with Jesse on that. And then the first 2 weeks of November leading up to the shoot date was logistics, making sure the location was going to be good, working with my art director, props. We had to dress up a hospital room, Calico Center, post-apocalyptic everywhere else in that building. So that was a lot of work. And then rehearsal. And I think that's something that not a lot of people do at this stage, but I like to do one rehearsal where we talk about the script, what you feel, what you read on the character. We talk about it in concept, and then we come back and we drill it. Are able to show up to set the following week, say, and we know exactly what we wanted to do. So it made the shots a lot better, made the day go smooth. Unlike Angie, I knew I could not get this in one day. I probably could, but I'd hate myself. It would be like very, when you talk about that coffee cigarettes thing, you're fading, and I wouldn't be fading. So I had the 7-page script and like 2.5 pages, and we wrapped early both days. And I will say to everybody who's new here, schedule for more time than you need, and you're a hero if you let people go home early. But schedule for less time than you need, and everyone's going to be kind of grumbling because they're having to cancel dinner. So always err on the side of caution.
Exactly. Good points. Hingman.
I was so engrossed in what you were all saying, I forget what the question was.
Whether you broke things up into 20 days, 20 days, and 20 days.
Oh, right. Okay. I think I spent like 55% of the time on pre-production, and then I had a 1-day shoot. This was for my for curbside pickup, and then the rest of the time on post. I wanted to, like, I had learned a lot from the previous projects. I wanted to spend a significant amount of time on pre-production. Like Patrick, I wanted to like meet with people, get my paperwork in order, get the locations, talk about like set decoration, all of that stuff. Because I don't want to leave that, because I only had the space for half a day. The location, I wanted to make sure when we get there, we know exactly what we're doing. We know exactly who's doing what. So there was a lot of pre-production. And then the day of, what really helped me, I always bring a friend of mine, Helen Lamb, who I collaborate with like on a lot of projects whenever she's available, because she is really great at telling me that I need to move on without making me anxious. She's like, she'll come up to me and she's like, just so you know, it's this time. And we have a great relationship, and that really helped me just make sure that we get everything, and to not get like, because I just get tunnel vision sometimes when I'm on set. I'm like, I need the shot, but sometimes it's like, do I really? Maybe I don't. And then post-production for a scripted film, when you have a script, for me, because I do documentaries as well, scripted film is, for me, is so much easier to edit than a documentary. Yeah,
it is so much easier. Yes.
Like it's a breeze. I'm like on a narrate, on a scripted film, I'm like, okay, I'll just do the last shot, like the last take of each scene. That's it, because I know that usually the last take is the one that I'll use. So much faster.
Yeah, and it can really depend if you do have a real vision of what you're thinking that scene is going to look like. I shouldn't make editing sound simple, because sometimes you go in and the editor creates something you had no idea that the stuff you shot could look and be put together in a way that makes the story work even better than the vision you had. So yeah, I don't mean to minimize, but yeah, when you're doing a documentary, oh my goodness.
Oh my good. I mean, I would flip the timelines for documentary, like post-production. Like, I mean, directing kind of happens during editing,
Right.
sometimes. So anyway, taking us off course. So
Yeah. Arjan.
Yeah, I'm similar. I also spend 50 to 60% of time for pre-production, just getting every little thing planned, like locations, actors, like coordinating, like, catering. And also usually like I only have maybe a maximum 3 days I would ever do just for budgetary reasons. So I'm always thinking of everything in terms of maybe 1 to 3 shoot days. So and also I find the story is very challenging for me to come up with. Like the camera and the shooting, that's really like the most fun of it. That's what I find more homework that I do, beforehand, the better that actual day goes. So I would also say that I spend most of my time for pre-production.
Yeah. So everyone seems pretty universal on that for sure. This is a good question. So when it came to transferring, you had an idea and you were writing your script, and then you had to actually turn that into something that's going on screen. There's probably big ideas that you had that you just couldn't do, whether it's because it's Digi60 and the timelines or budget. So did that happen to any of you where you had bigger ideas and you just had to scale them back? And how did you handle that? And we'll start with Arjan.
Yeah, in Night Drive, I had like this like scene where I wanted like a guy lying on the ground, and there's like ambulances and police, sirens and all that stuff. So really, we didn't have that budget. So me and my AD got a couple of lights and just like kept going like this, and no one noticed. So that happens all the time. I think you can get pretty creative with these things, like just film's a visual medium. So like you got to kind of sometimes just dumb it down a little bit and just kind of test it and roll with the punches that way, I'd say.
Yeah, excellent. Hingman?
yeah, I really wanted a dolly shot for the last shot for curbside pickup. So that's when you move the camera forward while zooming out. So it creates this, it was in Jaws, it was in Hitchcock films. It gives you like this weird feeling of perspective that's like, oh, what's happening here?
Sure, Derek's getting a link to one of those shots right now, actually. And
awesome. Yeah, to do it properly, you have to have a lot of like pre-planning and setup, but I just didn't have the time to like figure it out beforehand. And then I was like, we're just gonna wing it. Famous last words. We ended up, so we put like a tripod on a dolly, and then we had like, I pushed the dolly, someone else was working the camera. We just couldn't make it work. And that's when Helen was like, do you really need this? Can you do this another way? Let's take a step back. But and the end result, like we were able to do like a physical push in.
Yep.
And it was fine. It conveyed the feeling. I go back to Patrick's point about like, what's the story here? And remembering that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that shot too, and I think you changed color a little bit.
Yeah.
So you came up with some other ways to still convey the idea that we're doing. Yeah, it was a brilliant shot. Yeah,
thank you.
Patrick.
Yeah, no, like I think back and like it probably has some times, but I find in my mind I'm more of a I have all this stuff that I want to do long, especially more and more now, where it's be harder for the actors to use the camera. But I'm a big fan of just simple, elegant shots. I don't have too many times where I look at something or I have something in my mind and then I can't do it on the day of. But I think that's also like I find and make friends with gearheads who are happy to invest in this stuff, which might make it easy. And I'm always, trying the MacGyver stuff on set too. On my last film, it was a Digi film. but we were shooting on a beach, and I wanted a shot that was like half in the water, half not. Seeing this character wades out, like, you know, we can afford a proper gauge for the camera to go underwater. So we got Walmart.
I'm sorry, Patrick, your mic's sort of cracking up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I think it's not just me, right?
I'll get the fidget spinner out of there, maybe knock stuff around. Okay. But yeah, no, just I find that there's nothing I really can't do, or I can't find another cheaper way to do it. You know, build a dolly with just you know, plumbing pipes and like longboard wheels.
Yep.
Camera along that. You can always find a poor man's way to do things. So sometimes it's not exactly what you had in your head, and maybe it takes more time again in pre-production to figure out how you're going to do that. But there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, and the internet's great for coming up
Yeah.
with things like how to make a do-it-yourself dolly or a.
Oh yeah, that's it. Like none of this stuff is the product of my brain. It's like I'm like, what is the cheap way to do this? And then you find some other genius who has done this before, and you're like, yep, okay, that's how we're going to do it. YouTube guide, right? So get your IKEA instructions, do it step by step. Lo and behold, there you are. So,
But the genius is still coming up with the idea.
that's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
You know, how I go to sleep at night.
Yeah. Angie.
So I think it's very important for creativity's sake to write down and plan for everything that you want, even if it's massive and there's no way you can do it. Because I think it's important as a creative person, as an artist, to get that want out of your system. And then as you go through and face reality, then you can, you know, like, what's the word? Like triage what is actually very, you know, what's important, what will you not settle for less on. So I'm a little bit different than what Patrick was just saying, where, you know, I might not go for the poor man's dolly on a skateboard. Like I might want, you know, if there's a look that's in my head that's so specific, I might actually change that scene or that idea to suit what I have, you know? So yeah, like I think it's, again, like I write everything out and then I read it and I go, wow, this is crazy. I don't have $1 million to do this, but these are the things that I can do. And I can do these few things very well. So, you know, just to like pick away and chip away and do that. I think especially when we're doing short films, we need to keep things simple, keep it very simple. Don't get your big ideas out because it's important and they're in there, but trust that because you have the capability to make these huge ideas, that anything that you do that's simple will be fantastic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just so I think it is important to dream big and to think big, but then bring it down to reality on your terms.
Mm-hmm. But it is amazing too, the technology that's there that's not terribly expensive anymore, like a gimbal. Hingman was talking
absolutely about. Oh my God. Yeah. You know, we don't need, there's a shot that I wanted to do with this whole Ronin on these like Dana Dolly tracks set up, like this whole cable system to pass off the camera, like I'm doing 1917 or something. And then the DOP I worked with latest, he was like, you know, I just have this gimbal. I can just like walk through. Oh yeah, do it. And so, yeah, that's great. So yeah, like the same thing. I don't want to compromise, you know, the integrity of the story, if that makes sense. So I'll either adapt or I'll change it or I'll cut it. So it's, yeah, I think the important thing though is to get the whole idea out, you know. And if there's one thing, I don't know if we're going to have a chance to say like something that I would like everybody to know. I think ask for all the things that you want, because you might get them, you know. Ask on the local filmmakers sites, you know, if there's a location that you really want and you're like, oh, I can't afford to shoot there, just ask them, because a lot of people are like, oh, cool, you're making a movie, you know, and they're going to be willing to help you out. So, you know, like I needed to shoot outside of a hospital. I was like, there's no way I'm going to get that. And then I got it. I'm doing that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, and ask for things. I asked for a classic car and I had like 80 people. Hey, do you want this car? And they're like showing me all pictures of their car. Like, what? Sure. I can't pay you. They're like, whatever. So just ask for things.
Yeah. And it can be tough. I think, I don't know the statistics, but I think a lot of filmmakers are kind of introverted. The stories are in their heads. But as a filmmaker, you almost do have to be, you have to force yourself to be a little extroverted and to reach out.
It's a character. Play that character. Play the character of the director that gets their way, right? Because I would never, like, just me as me, I'm not going to go ask people for these like crazy wild things. But if I think of it, well, but for, me as this director of this movie that I want to make, I'm going to do that. I might as well ask, like, what are they going to do? Say, no, I'm not going to cry. I'm not a baby. So, just anyway.
Yeah, it's great. Great.
That's it.
All right. Well, legal matters. Yes, this is a good question too. Yeah. Did you come up against any legal matters like rights or locations or anything that maybe people might not think of ahead of time that they maybe should have wished they knew? Arjan?
For me, I don't know. Like I had, when I did I did like a horror film, and I went and checked on insurance and stuff because we had like this one scene that could have been dangerous maybe for the actors, but I actually just ended up cheating the scene and not doing it in a dangerous way instead. But I think looking into insurance based on what your subject matter is not a bad thing. So I think that's all that I've ever come up with for legal. I don't use like all the music and stuff that I use, I have the rights to. So I haven't really had any cease and desist yet.
Excellent. Angie?
Oh, okay. So this doesn't pertain to last year, it pertains to this year with shooting at the hospital. They're letting me shoot there, but they're requesting that they view the footage that I want to add to the film, just to make sure that there are no patients' faces visible of people coming and going. So that's just, that's fine. And also if there are going to be, say you're like, when you're on a location and people are like, hey, do you need any extras? When we're doing these things that are independent and we're not paying anybody, yeah, I do. So just make sure you have them like sign a piece of paper saying, I agree to be, for my image to be, it doesn't need to be anything super technical, but just have them sign a piece of paper that they agreed to be in this production. Just because, things happen down the line.
Yeah. And you can find those kind of documents online for people. And it's like you say, even to have 10 of them printed with you, just in case something comes up on the shoot day where someone's in the background or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're planning on shooting on any streets, you do need to make sure you get a permit. If you're on the sidewalk or streets. And again, like I live in a smaller town. So when I need to do those things, I kind of just I just managed to call up somebody and they give me permission from a certain time to a certain time, but if you're in downtown Ottawa, I know it's a pretty serious thing. The police can show up on your set. And if they do, just make sure to roll camera on it.
For the behind the scenes footage. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ask the police to sign a release when they're done. Yeah. Hingman.
Yes. When I made Curbside Pickup, I didn't know how far it was going to go. And when a national broadcaster wants to license your film, they're going to ask for all kinds of paperwork. So I was glad that by that time I knew that everyone had to sign a release, all the locations have to have release. I had to have insurance and etc. everything. There are a lot of requirements for broadcast to make sure that whatever they put on TV or it's a publicly funded organization, that it's not going to get them in trouble. So just make sure you have all the paperwork. Sometimes, there are some easier ways to do things because, for example, one of the locations for Curbside Pickup, I sent a location release to the owner of a space, and they read it and was like, there's no way I'm going to sign a document like this. because it was like 5 pages long. It's, you know, that kind of stuff is legal stuff people don't like reading. But I was like, in my email, I was like, okay, but can I still use this space? Do I have permission? Do I have your permission? I need it in writing. And they were like, yes, you can use the space, period. And then I talked to a lawyer and they were like, well, this is, I mean, they gave you permission. It's not like, it's not in a form, but it's still okay. So if you run into people who don't want to sign forms, get them on camera saying, I am aware that I'm being filmed and I consent to my image being used in this film by so-and-so, because that is also consent. So yeah.
Did you have to make any alterations to the film for it to go on CBC?
I was wondering about that because there is a swear word in it, but they made an exception
really
to not bleep it because it was essential to the story.
Exactly. Oh, cool. All right, Patrick.
Yeah, no, I can't remember the short film very long time, but reality used to like rights. This guy,
Patrick, I don't know if you're just being quiet and it's breaking up, but it's really breaking up. So maybe you can shout.
Let me try and fiddle around with this. Does this sound better? And then move this up a bit, more clear.
Yeah, when you hold it up, it helps. Yes.
Okay, I'll try that.
Yeah.
No, but I was reminded of this short film, and again, I can't remember the name, but I watched it a while ago. But you know, I had this guy bring a girl back to his apartment, and he asked me like, "No, what kind of music do you like?" Like, royalty-free music. And
royalty-free.
That is a joke that the filmmaker put in for other filmmakers, and I can appreciate that. My first film, Moonbeam, we were using footage of the Apollo moon landing, and then we realized halfway through, oh yeah, we didn't ask anybody for this, and prior to submitting we had to scramble and go to CNN for like Walter Cronkite's permissions, and then NASA, and CNN had none of it. They're like, nope, not at all. And NASA, and this is the funny part where it's like you can kind of like you surprise yourself like just by virtue of asking. They said you can't use any of the audio for whatever reason because they didn't have any consent on file for the guys, but because they were indistinguishable in their suits, they said we could use the video. So then I ended up doing an ADR voiceover and throwing it over that footage, and that made it to the movie. So
amazing.
Ask, you can surprise yourself.
Yeah, because I would 100%, if anyone ever asked me, can I use moon footage? I would say there is no way you would be allowed to do that.
That's it. We panicked. Boom, there it was. So
that's a great story. Good stuff. All right, Angie, what was the question you were hoping we were going to ask?
What's like your number one piece of advice? You know, like something that
you look through the questions here. Oh, here's a question. What's your number one piece of advice to a new filmmaker? And we'll start with Angie.
Well, I think I said it already. Just, be realistic and, ask for things. Like, really, we have a really awesome film community here in Ottawa, like beyond Digi60. There's a lot of us that work on Christmas movies year round who are itching to do something creative. So, ask for something. You might find somebody with a lot of experience that's willing to donate their time just to not do another Christmas movie. So, and then ask for locations, ask for things, and what's going to happen? Someone's going to say no to you. Move on.
That was a great answer to a great question. Thank you. Arjan.
I would say don't be afraid to submit your film. I remember the first one that I submitted, I was terrified about it was not going to be good enough to be screened in an audience. Even for Night Drive, I actually thought the same thing where I was like worried, that I'm like, okay, they'll probably slap it in somewhere in the middle where it won't have too many eyes on it. And surely enough, it was the last one and I ended up winning and I was shocked. I sat all the way in the back row. So I would say don't be afraid. You don't know how it's going to be perceived. And, you can always make another film, and people only tend to remember when you're starting out, people tend to remember the good ones more than like, the failures where you're just learning. And that's what they are, you're learning. So yeah, don't be afraid, submit your film and keep getting better would be my advice.
Awesome. Patrick.
Yeah, grab the mic, keep it close so everyone can hear my words of wisdom recorded. I would just say, remember, everybody who's coming out and working for you, especially at this stage on your crew, they're doing you a huge favor. And, while a lot of people get it in their head, tensions can run high on set, you're running out of daylight, you want to play the auteur, it's your way or the highway. These people are your creative equals, they have great input. Make them feel valued because, again, despite what auteur theory says, filmmaking is a team sport. And as director, you're the captain. A big part of that is making sure that those people feel as though they are informing the process, and value that. And if you do, they'll want to work with you again. So
yeah, definitely. Hingman.
Okay, I'm going back to the paperwork stuff because it's very important to get your permits in order, especially if you're a person of color filming on public land. You don't want the police to show up or people to randomly ask you what the hell you're doing and be stuck without paperwork. Check out, there's resources on DARC, Digital Arts Resource Center, about how to get a permit. I've gotten permits to film on public land in Ottawa. I found it to be a very smooth process. They just require you to like post posters all around to like let people know. It goes a long way if you have a producer or someone in your team who's going to go around and talk to people before you start filming, because people don't like to be surprised. Like if this is in front of their home, if this is like if their child goes to this park, you just want someone there to like manage people if they're feeling uneasy. So highly recommend to get your paperwork in order if you're going to be filming in public. A way I've worked around this, curbside pickup was always on private property. And that just means you have to get permission from the owner of the property. So for a short film that you don't have a lot of time for, if you can get a permit, great. But I would recommend trying to go for private property.
Right. Excellent. Good. All right. Now we actually have an individual question for each of you that has been generated. So Hingman, what made you think of using a voiceover and having a narrator as your storytelling tool in curbside pickup?
I took a lot of inspiration from Mesa's film from a few years ago. I thought it was such a great way to play with kind of the limitations of the time and what you're exploring at the time in terms of filmmaking. So I suck at writing dialogue. So I was like, I'm not going to write dialogue. There's going to be no dialogue in this film. But then as I was thinking about it at the time, I was also like, dealing with a lot of mental health issues. One of the things that I'm dealing with or have been dealing with is my inner voice. It goes along with imposter syndrome. There's always this voice in my head being like, what are you doing? You suck. So that's how the idea came about for having a narrator.
Did you know it was going to be a male voice?
Yeah, for me, yes, because it's people's inner narrators doesn't always have to be like your own voice. And my inner narrator is not my own voice. It's someone, and it changes. It depends on the situation and what kind of anxiety I have. So I wanted to play with that idea. And also the accent was very specific. I'm from Hong Kong, so it's colonized by the British people, and there's this certain I think assumed power in a British voice. So I wanted to play with the idea of like some power over you, but it's in your head. But where does that come from? It comes from your culture. So, you know, that's the backstory.
Right. Yeah. And it made the swear word very effective. Yeah, that was a good film.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Arjan, there was a lot of work put into your production design for Night Drive. Was that a conscious choice? And how were you able to prioritize that?
Yeah, it was a conscious choice as well. Actually, I went to a bunch of like value villages and stuff like that, getting like old, like, you know, boom box and stuff like that. And even the tapes, we went and we got like real tapes, which were really hard to find. And I labeled them and we drew on them. And like, so that was part of my pre-production, was getting all those little like props and like things like that set. So, and I think that's really important. I think like set design is something that is very important. And I think it's something that I didn't think of in my first submission to Digi60, but like it definitely even adds to the story a bit. Like, you know, there was stuff there that I knew why I was there, but maybe the audience might not have known. But I think it was important to the whole project. And I think it's something worth thinking about, because there's people that do set design as their main thing. And for me, I'll be watching a TV show and I'm like, man, that's a cool telephone that they got in the background. That's like teal or something. So, and it can add a bit of a pop to your image. So yeah, it was a conscious choice.
Cool. And it is amazing, yeah, when you watch shows with detailed rooms, to think that everything in that room, someone made a decision that it was going to be there. It had some sort of visual importance to be in that background. And you barely even look at it, but you do. You pick up on things that give you a feeling that they're trying to make you feel. So yeah, and it was so effective in your film for sure. Angie, on Megan's Day, what was it like working on several locations? Now you talked a little bit about securing them, but even just moving between them, what was it like, the planning for moving between them in a day?
Well, it was involved with the actors' availability, as well as one of the sets was inside a store, and it's a working open store. So they just said, yeah, you can shoot here. You just need to be out by 10 a.m. So that kind of just said, okay, well, that's the first location then. And then I tried to plan everything as close as possible. So from there, we went to the river, and then we just like slushed it up the street outside of a friend's house, which is just down the street from the school. So everything was very close. And then my house was kind of the base camp, home base. So, you know, we'd pop by here. My mom was here with kids and she had food and everything. So we could pop in and out. So I'm pretty proud of that planning, but it was definitely dictated by the business that I had to work around, which was the store.
And was there actual vehicle transportation to move people around, or?
Yeah, we coordinated that as well, you know, so the camera team went together in their car with the camera cart, and you know, me and the actor went together, and then I had other actors that were location specific, so they just showed up at that time. So that kind of helped keep us on track too, you know. I didn't want people waiting out in the rain, you know, outside a school for a couple of hours. So it was like, okay, we need to be there by this time. So that kept us moving.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, Patrick, in Fitful Mercies, yeah, it was a serious topic. What made you decide to tackle it in the way you did?
Yeah, so with this one, you know, I wanted to really, and when I started writing, this was at the forefront of my mind. I don't want to go in and have it be like preachy in any way. I don't want to feel like talking down.
Oh, Patrick, I'm going to ask you to lift your mic.
Yes, there we
There
go.
we go.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, no, when I started on the writing of this one, you know, I knew right away I didn't want it to be, you know, a preachy film. I didn't want it to be, you know, something that could be construed as me talking down to anybody or making like a trite political point. What I really wanted to do was just empower or try and take this abstract thought out of my head. Sat with it for a year, but what I, you know, came to see it as was just the life-affirming quality that Volition endows people with. So you know, in seeing what was going on in Texas at the time, now it's you know, the entire United States. You know, I think that you know, women's rights are human rights, and I wanted to sort of work with you know, a pair of actresses. We could, you know, get in, tell a very personal story. It's dealing with a sensitive topic, but not have it be anything that was going to hit anyone over the head. That it was still at its core about the plight of these two individual women. And I think that's you know, what really elevated it beyond its subject matter for me, was that these two women were going through a personal crises in their own way, and it was about them. And if you wanted to imply, you know, that it was about something bigger, the possibility was there, but at its heart, it was still a story about these two. And I really enjoy working with, you know, talented cast, and you know, both actresses really brought their A game. We did a lot of prep, and yeah, we drilled it in rehearsal, showed up, and you know, sometimes we're doing those emotional scenes for like 8 takes, but the dedication with both Ella and Kathy was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good time all around.
Yeah. Great. And it's so important to have that communication with your actors in those situations. Yeah.
100%.
Cool. All right. There's a little bit of discussion going on here. I noticed over in the chat about using racial slurs and things like that. I mean, we really don't want to restrict the freedom of filmmakers, but things like that, we would heavily discourage things like that, like hate speech and things like that. That's really not what we want in this festival, and it might disqualify a film from being screened even. And I think Angie said it great. Like you can get a feeling if you're trying to create a feeling by using that. There's other ways, and try to be creative in the ways that that maybe you might want to generate two characters not liking each other, but it's almost a little lazy maybe just to go to a racial slur or something like that. So let's try to keep these films, like I said, it can be scary, it can be things like that, but I think we all understand what we're trying to achieve here as a group, and a safe environment for everybody when they show up at the screenings as well. I mean, we have children that show up to these screenings. They're warned that there's going to be some things maybe that might be a little disturbing, but let's make sure that we're keeping it fair. Yeah. Typical pronoun used by a community. Let's not in this festival. All right, let's try to avoid stepping over that line in this festival. Okay. And again, coming up with creative ways to create tension between characters instead of taking the lazy route, I would say. Okay. But great question. Thank you so much for asking that question. It's so great that that we're bringing stuff up. All right. What do we? Oh my God! It's 8:30. Do we have to stop, Emily?
If did you get your final question in for the specific filmmaker questions?
I did. I think I got everybody. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, we can put it out there if anybody has any questions they want to come on the video for. We can do that for a couple of minutes, or we could wrap it up. So if anybody wants to speak now, feel free to pop on.
And if you have a cat, turn on your camera. We want to see your cat. But I think you all did such a great job. Like, we covered so much here, and I think that so many new filmmakers, they don't even know the questions they should be asking. So I think what we went through here today, you guys did an amazing job of helping people to understand what they've gotten into. And I mean, like you say, you're halfway through, and hopefully you've gotten a certain stage of the process done. But there's always the few that it's day 30 and they're like, I think I should start thinking about making this film. You can still do it, but you need to get on it. And so much of this, I think what you learned was organization before the camera even starts rolling. 10 times the amount of time goes before the camera even starts rolling, as opposed to just jumping onto a set and starting to roll the camera and hoping you're going to get something. So, all right. That's it, Emily. We're tired. We got to stop. Like, look, we're exhausted. Where's the craft? We need food to get our energy back up.
Well, thank you. We are wrapping up pretty much on time. So thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Hingman, Arjan, Patrick, and Angie. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and your experiences with everyone. If anybody has any questions in your last half of the 60 days, please feel free to email us info@digi60.org. And we'll do our best to answer your question or direct you to the people who can help you throughout the process. No question is too stupid. No question is too ridiculous. So if you feel that, oh, my question's dumb, don't worry about it. We've heard everything. We've heard the gamut. So don't ever worry about it. And if you're thinking about it, probably another filmmaker is thinking about it as well. So don't feel worried about that.
The only person who's ever gotten it exactly right from the start, Derek Price.
He's gonna give you a thumbs up for that.
I didn't know he was here.
Yeah. All right, so I think that wraps up our evening. Thank you again to our speakers. Thank you to all our filmmakers who came out tonight. I just want to quickly acknowledge the financial support of the City of Ottawa and to thank our sponsors for their support for our 2022 festival season: Affinity Production Group, DARC, the Digital Arts Resource Center, the Mentor Agency, and Actor Ottawa. Again, thank you, panelists. Thank you for tuning in. Good luck to all our filmmakers in the final stretch. We can't wait to see your films. Screening December 16th and 17th at the Ottawa Art Gallery. It's just around the corner. You're going to do great and enjoy this process. Have a great night, everyone.